Hi, I'm Diane Kometa, and today on Dishin with Di, I'm going to be making cream puffs. These are really delicious, light and fluffy pastries with fillings of either whipped cream, pastry cream, ice cream, or whatever you choose. Absolutely delicious, so let me show you what you need and we'll get started today on Dishin with Di. You need some water, some unsalted butter, some granulated sugar and salt, all-purpose flour, and some eggs at room temperature. You also want to have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, and you want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is take my dry ingredients. That's my all-purpose flour, my sugar, and my salt, and I'm going to whisk those together in a bowl. This pastry is also known as a pâte à choux or a choux pastry. Now that that's thoroughly combined, you're going to go over to the stove and you're going to take a pot and put it onto medium-high heat. Add in your water and your softened unsalted butter, and you're going to bring that up to a boil. Once that comes to a boil, you're going to take the flour mixture and you're going to dump that in all at once. You're going to take a firm spoon or spatula and you're going to stir that very vigorously until it's very well incorporated, and you'll see that a lot of steam starts to come up from the dough. And what's going to happen is it's going to start to form a ball. You want to keep turning that in your pot until the steam just kind of starts to dissipate. Now once that happens, you want to take it off of the heat and put it into a separate bowl and let it sit there for about 5 minutes to cool off a little bit. Now once that 5 minutes has passed, then you're going to take those eggs and one at a time you're going to add those into that dough, and you're going to stir that in there very vigorously. Now what you're going to see is that first, when the egg hits and you start to mix it, the dough is just going to kind of separate. It's going to be all like little pieces everywhere. Nothing's wrong. That's what's supposed to happen. Then it'll come back together. So each time you add an egg, that's what you'll see. You'll see that dough come apart and then pull back together. Now you have 4 eggs to start with, and I always have an extra egg at the end in case I need it. So here's what you're looking for. When you're done mixing that dough together with the eggs, you're going to take your spoon or your spatula and you're going to hold that up, and that dough, when you turn your spoon, should just kind of fall off into the bowl. It shouldn't just stick firmly on the spoon. If it does, then you need to add another egg. So do that test and then we'll get this into the oven. Okay, now it's done, and as I showed you, it falls right from the spoon, so that's the consistency that you're looking for. So sometimes you might have to add another egg and other times you won't. It's going to depend on how that flour absorbed and how it cooked and how much steam was let off. So that's something you're just going to have to check. Now, what I like to do is use a small ice cream scooper, and then I put all of the individual puffs onto my baking sheet. You could put this on with 2 spoons if you want, or you could use a piping bag, but this is the way I like to do it. So just grab some of that dough and put a small amount down. Now these are going to be small cream puffs. Just leave some space in between because they are going to puff up. Okay, now they're all on my sheet, and now what you want to do is just dampen your fingers and smooth out any of these little things that might be sticking up, because what's going to happen if you don't smooth them down, then they're going to get more brown than the rest of it. So you don't want that. You want these to be as pretty as possible. So just make sure you smooth those down. Now I actually made a double batch of these today, and the second batch I'm going to take and put them into the freezer before they're cooked. Lay them out on the baking sheet with the parchment paper, put them in the freezer, and then once they're frozen, I'm going to cover them with plastic. And then when it's time for me to use them in the future, I'm going to cook them as I'm going to cook them today, 400 degrees for 10 minutes, and then reduce the heat to 375, and these are going to cook for 15 to 20 minutes. And that's going to be until they're nice and dried out inside. And you're going to know that by checking them, and you're just going to take one and take a cut into it and take a look. And if it looks too eggy in there or moist, then you want to leave them in for another 5 minutes or so. You could also poke a hole in the side or slice them on the side, and that'll help let some of the steam out. Now with the ones that are frozen, you would do the same process, except you would let that time go a little bit longer. So instead of 15 to 20, maybe 20 to 25 or so. So that's about it. So I'm going to put these into the oven, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're done. And this is how I like to serve my cream puffs, with some delicious whipped cream. Now I also sprinkle a little bit of confectioner's sugar on top. And this is actually my homemade whipped cream recipe, and it's right here. I just made it. It's so delicious and thick, and it's great for other things. And then another thing that I like to do is I'll take them and I'll fill them with pastry cream. So this is the type of pastry cream that you use for like eclairs, or if you want to put it on Napoleons. And I just made a recipe for this. So you just put like a dollop of that in there, or you could put this in a piping bag too, and it's absolutely delicious. You could put some, chocolate glaze or something like that on there, but again, I like the little bit of, powdered sugar on there. It's so good. So let me just give it a taste. They're so light. They're just perfect. They're so easy to make. Now, if you find that it is a little moist inside, or it hasn't dried out completely, it's not going to ruin them by any means. They're good. They're kind of foolproof. I really especially love them with the whipped cream, so make sure you check that recipe out. So all these recipes can be found on my website, dishinwithdi.com. So go over there and check my other stuff out too. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. I hope I made your life a little easier, more enjoyable,